Okay, 7:18, we're reconvening the Selma City Council meeting. Earlier this meeting, I said we were going to move the agenda in a slightly different order, but we are going to stay with the agenda as printed. My reason for wanting to do that was Councilmember Trujillo has an obligation and he had to leave early, so he is no longer on the dais, so there's no need to move that out of order. I was hoping that all of the council members would participate in this, in item 2, but we'll just move forward as is. Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion roll call vote. For the purpose of discussion, any council member may have any item removed from the consent calendar and made part of the regular agenda. Council then can approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Would anyone like to have any items removed? Okay.
No.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Franco?
Aye. Okay.
That's right.
Regular business, item number 2, council request to discuss entering into a city attorney legal services agreement with special counsel Costanzo and Associates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We had a council member request from Councilmember Avalos to put this item on the agenda to consider discussing the current special services agreement we have with Counsel Costanzo and Associates and making that the city attorney agreement. So that is.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I brought this to the agenda to the council as a group. The reason I felt because I'm as one will say, I'm the father time on the council, and when I came on board, I've seen different attorneys come on board, and I've learned in the political arena and any city government, you always want to know your people around you, as far as your developers, people you deal with the county and everything, and Neil has been the person that's been in contact with everybody in the valley. So I felt that his contract should be included in this deal because he's like a willing employee, subject to anything in life as a city manager or situations like that for review. And I felt it's time to he did when he came back, he did his diligence. He's doing a great job, and he's moving the city forward as far as our economic development, as far as our processes, the stakeholders in the valley. So they know him, and he understands them. And as you'll find out through the city people, that you'll find our economics going to move faster now because situations have changed now. So that's why I brought it to the council to recommend him for his as the attorney. And the contract, as far as the contract, yeah, I think I think we have the contract already in play, don't we? As it is now.
Our current contract is for special counsel services, like interim services,
Yeah,
on
I
a
think-
90-month basis and with automatic renewals until a permanent appointment.
Yeah, I think.
Well, a not special counsel
Yeah, but
appointment is made.
yeah. That's why I brought it, Franco.
Before I open it to the public, you guys have any comments?
So the agreement per special counsel, just procedural, can this be turned into, because I noticed we don't have a contract in front of us tonight. Are we just voting to enter into a contract potentially
voting.
with Mr. Costanzo?
Yeah, so it was a discussion item to see if the council would
discussion.
like to do that, if.
But we're not actually looking at the
No.
contract itself
No,
tonight.
but we could make it
Direction.
I think
we could change.
after we finish our discussion here from the public,
Yeah.
what we think the next logical step was to put it on the next meeting.
Yeah, we can put it on the next agenda.
Next meeting to vote on his contract. I don't think because this is listed as a discussion item, it's a non-action. Is that correct?
Right, this is a discussion at the council's request for direction as to whether you'd like me to bring something back to consider a contract
Yeah, I think.
or
we
some
bring-
other process.
I would like to see his contract.
Okay.
So that'd be the next step, to see the actual contract.
A non-actual contract. Okay. With that,
And I would ask, the current contract is the special counsel contract, so I can put that as, and that was an attachment to your document.
I didn't see it.
So we do have
Page 15.
attached to this agenda item.
This one,
The
right?
special
The
counsel.
special counsel contract.
So you can see, and I can certainly discuss with you if that is something that looks appropriate. I think right
Question
now-
I have, city manager,
Yeah.
pardon the interruption, I
No,
apologize.
no problem.
Is you're negotiating a contract with a lawyer, should you also have another lawyer to help the city, such as Shailene, help you with this contract, just because, I mean, it's another contract? Or do you feel like it's okay, do you feel comfortable doing a contract, negotiating the contract, and then bringing it back to council?
I think that's a great suggestion, actually, to just make sure that we have another set of eyes on it, and we have them under contract, so they could do that for us.
You're not a lawyer.
Right, I
And
mean,
you're negotiating a legal document, so I think we're getting outside the scope of there in terms of the city. Just my 2 cents at this point before the public weighs in is, we don't need, I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of money on this, just
Well,
like
you know
the
what?
job search.
I'll be honest, Scott, she could probably use a template from the previous contracts we had with our attorneys, because we already have a template in play already, don't we, on the previous contracts with the city attorneys that we have in the past?
City had a
Yeah.
contract with
So we could use
with
the
Mr.
same
Costanzo
template.
previously.
yes, we have this contract as a template with minor changes. We have the previous contract, or we also have the other city attorney's contract that we had.
Yeah,
This one, so I think
but-
one
I'm just
has.
saying- when you-
Councilman Robertson, correct, if we're gonna make a binding or
Yeah.
a contract, we need to have an attorney look at it.
Because the process is usually with the city, you come up, you negotiate the contract, and then you put it by the lawyer to review with the city attorney. Well, in this case, the contract is for the city attorney, so there'd be a conflict there. So it'd probably be good to have another set of legal eyes looking at it.
So-
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
at this point, I'm going to open it up to the public. If anybody'd like to make a comment on this matter, please step to the podium.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Cliff Titalian, and as you know, we've been working for quite a while with market conditions and all the other issues. And I'm here tonight to comment and to urge you to enter into an agreement or negotiate an agreement with Mr. Costanzo. Just to give you a little background, in '05, about '08, market turned, we sat idle, and I've been before this body on various issues. And right now, what will allow us to move forward is to have legal counsel with background on city matters, background transactionally, and I already heard comment that things are starting to move forward again, and that's what we've enjoyed about him and in working with him. And mind you, we don't always agree, but I found him to be knowledgeable with the city's best interests at heart, and where we come into play and what's important to us is his creativity and trying to find solutions. I urge you to, I'm here in support of you working out an agreement with Mr. Costanzo, as I believe he will be a valuable intellectual asset to the city. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street, Selma. Normally, when you're going to hire somebody or go looking for someone to fill a position, you do an RFP. You put it out there so that you can get other people to come in who are also shown interest in that position that you have available. We have elected you guys to represent us, not to just pull somebody out of a hat. Mr. Costanzo, I'm sure, knows what he's doing, but he worked for the city before, and you guys let him go. You were not happy with his performance. You let him go, and you hired somebody else. then you let that person go. And you have Neil filling in temporarily. So rather than just jump back on that horse again, I really think that we should do an RFP, get some other people who are also qualified, because there's lots of people in our community who do litigation for cities. So it's not like he's the only person who knows how to do that. But I would think that we could get some other people who might be interested, who might save us money, who might be more knowledgeable, who might have more experience, who might be younger, older, whatever the case may be, who could give us another perspective rather than going back to the old way that we had before. Again, my thinking is that we let him go. We let him go for a reason. There's a reason that he was fired from his position here with the city. We got somebody else. Obviously, people didn't think she worked out for the city, so she left. And we're going backwards. We need to go forward. I think that, you guys need to open that up to more possibilities rather than just go back to what we had before. It's not to say that he can't have the job, but, make it a good choice. Give us a choice as a community of who's going to represent us in legal decisions, and not just the same old stuff.
Thank you.
I'd like to clarify on Mrs. Salas' her statement. For the record, myself and Councilmember Trujillo were not on the council at the time they let Mr. Costanzo go. So I just want to clear that and put that on the record. So it wasn't all of us. It was 2 of us weren't even here. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make a comment on this matter? Okay, with that, I'm going to bring it back to council. My thoughts on this is, I think it would be a disservice if we don't go out for an RFP and see get the best candidate to represent our city. I think we should conduct a search and interview for the best attorney out there that will help move Selma forward. That's where I personally stand on in my thoughts on this matter. But right here, we have to come with the consensus. This is just a discussion item. So there's 4 of us here. So if 3 of us feel that right now is the time to move this consensus forward, we need to give direction to city manager. If we feel that perhaps we want to wait a little bit and continue with the interim and do a search at a later date, then we need to give her that direction as well. So I'll take it back to my colleagues here. Well, what's your feelings on this matter?
Well, my fact is, we're going to move this thing forward. I believe we move this thing forward. There's things on the plate on our city government as far as our economic development and horizon right now, and we need somebody in the game that knows what's going on right now. I believe in taking care of business right now and streamlining some operations in our city to make the city grow faster and more productive. And if we don't do this, act on this, we're going to create more blight in our community. It's going to happen. So I'm making this thing
So
move forward.
when we had, we're talking about, the search going after the RFP. I mean, we have 3 big positions that we're looking for right now: the community planning director, the EDC director, and the police chief, and that's a lot on the plate of the city manager. And I think that's too much. I don't think we need to add something else to that. But going back to the merits of Mr. Costanzo himself, he wasn't voted out because I heard anybody say he was doing a bad job. The council was moving towards a different direction, and the council tried it, and it didn't work out. So now we have, I've had perspective being able to see Mr. Costanzo when I got on in 2012, and then seeing the other person that the city tried, and the other attorney, and that did not work out. And I think it's time, having seen that, I think Mr. Costanzo is a good choice with that experience and his business connections and his connections in the community. For instance, with Mr. Titelian, who's working on a multi-million-dollar project, and there are other projects and other developers and other business interests that he has had relationships with and can leverage those relationships to propel our city forward, including the need for single-family custom homes as well, and the negotiations that need to happen there. So in that, with that being said, I would be in favor of seeing a contract for the appointment of Mr. Costanzo as the city attorney.
Okay, that's two. We had Sarah?
I agree.
You with Jim and Scott?
I do.
Or me?
With hiring Mr. Costanzo or making a
So
contract.
I guess you have
with him.
consensus to bring us back a contract. I just want to reiterate my point. I think we talk about all this economic development and all this stagnant stuff. This was the same attorney that we had during that time period. So I thinking if we are in the mindset that we're going to change our attorney and economic development is just going to explode and move forward all of a sudden, I think that's a little bit unrealistic on our part. It's a combination of not only having good legal staff, but also having good staff within the city to move these things. And a lot of these positions that you're working on, Teresa, hopefully will make these things a lot more streamlined than they've been in the past. But with that, I think the
If
direction
I
has been given.
if I could, I would just add as a postscript to that, the need for unity on our council. We hear about that, unity. And we quite clearly had a city attorney at the July 1st meeting at the 53-minute count, if anyone wants to take a look at it, where Mr. Trujillo said, hey, we can't have 5 districts. That we can't have 4 districts and mayor at large. That will subject us to litigation. And the city attorney agreed, and that split, if you don't mind, I'd like to finish, and that split the council further. That's divide and conquer tactics, and she was a proponent of the mayor, the current mayor, and a friend of his daughter. And I think we just have to take this into account, that we can have an objective attorney. We need to get one back. And I think we need someone to help us, towards bring this unity back towards the council. It turns out, which Mr. Costanzo showed us, that Government Code 34866 expressly says there is no increased litigation risk for having 4 districts and mayor at large. And how many weeks did we go in the wrong direction on that till we had the correct legal opinion? Please don't interrupt me. I'm almost
gonna move
done.
this
So
forward.
I will finish. Wait till I finish.
I'm going to move this forward over.
No, you're not.
Get that.
So the point of what I'm saying is, again, here we go. Not letting me speak. You have an issue with free speech. We need an attorney that will come in and will show us the laws objectively. And I'm looking forward to seeing that contract at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, let's get back to business.
Okay, back to business, but just for the record, at that meeting, a member of the public just come and correct our current attorney saying, yes, we are still subject to litigation. But with that, we're moving forward to the next item. Could somebody please call Mr. Costanza back in? Item 3, regular business, consideration and necessary action to extend rentals of the Salazar Center leasing agreement. Let me start over. Consideration and necessary action to extend a rental of the Salazar Center lease agreement with the Smart Center and the Boys and Girls Club. Mr. Kirshner?
Mayor Franco and members of the City Council, tonight I come before you with consideration to approve an extension of the rental of Salazar Center lease agreement with the Smart Center, which is serving and mobilizing assistance, resources, and training, and the Boys and Girls Club. Back in 2010, the City Council worked with Selma Ministerial Alliance to seek a location and develop a program for youth and adults in Selma. The Salazar Center was identified, and a 3-year lease between the City of Selma and the Smart Center at that time was approved for a 3-year period through 2013. In 2013, it was approved again up until 2016, when the City Council approved a 3-year lease of the Salazar Center with both the Smart Center and the Boys and Girls Club. Tonight, staff comes before you with consideration of approval with additional 3 years for the Smart Center and the Boys and Girls Club. We have met with both representatives, and I know Diane Carberry's here from the Boys and Girls Club, and Delphina was here, but no longer is here. Both have agreed in principle to the agreements that are before you. I would like to point out, I know we talked to the city attorney today about one little change in page 1, section 1, where we have the year 2022. Our goal originally was to get this to the city council in 2019 with the transitions. So that should say 2023, so it would become a 3-year agreement, correct?
That is correct, and we'd be presenting to the mayor for execution a corrected version that was the proper year in there.
So, a three-year extension?
Yes.
Or agreement?
Yeah. There's been no significant changes, so just modifications with the verbiage and insurance and some of the requirements, but the hours and the programs, the Smart Center will serve as a resource center, and of course, the Boys and Girls Club serve for youth and programs. I will say Mark Armenta is the director here. They had a scheduled field trip tonight, so otherwise he would have been here also. So here's an excused absence, you might say. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer any.
I think both organizations are asset to our community. I don't see.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'd like to hear from that young lady down there in the
Well,
room.
hold on. I haven't opened up public yet.
Okay.
But any comments from council?
No, I think it looks pretty good. The agreement
Yeah.
looks pretty standard.
I got a question.
Sure.
So, I was just reading the contract, and it looked like there are some reports that are required from both parties, quarterly reports.
That was added, yes. They do some reporting on the number of use, and a lot of times
It was part of the 16 contract, too.
yeah.
And what I realized is it was included for the Smart Center as well. So you did it to be fair. You included the report requirement for the Smart Center and for the
Correct.
Boys and Girls Club. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you receive any reports from the Smart Center?
Me personally, I have to defer. I'm not sure if Assistant City Manager has. I have not received any from the Smart Center.
Okay.
Was that in their original agreement, the reports, or is this something new this was added to the Smart Center?
It was in 16. It was in the previous lease.
I'd have to go back and double check
Okay.
to that.
Another thing, just asking, just because I'm pretty familiar with the area. Was there I know there are food giveaways, as Delphina indicated, there's a food giveaway every week at the park. Is there a church service?
There's no longer a church service. That's prior to our city manager here. I know Assistant Manager Isaac was over Swamp, so I kind of jumped in because we used to rent Salazar. This whole process started because of Facebook talking about classes and hiring students, and then also doing church services. So what we've really included, and I've also emailed Delphina, so it's documented, is no church services, no Bible study. What's helping now is it's really calmed down a lot in those progressive programs there, because they now have the building on Whitson and McCall. And so the Smart Center is going back to its original resource center, but we've pushing them they can't be doing the Bible study and the church services there. They can do a prayer before breakfast or before lunch, but not an actual service.
Because when you don't charge rent, is that right? You can't favor one religion?
Yeah, it has to do with the fair market value of a church.
Establishment clause.
Also, the conditional use permit Salazar is not permitted as a church too, so there's 2 reasons.
And then did we have, so from what I understand, from what I used to see in some of these packets, the Pioneer Village, I think they moved out, Pastor Joe's services moved out to Pioneer Village,
Yeah, they've been out for over a month now. They're at the Tory Market, the old Tory Market.
and they did they pay rent at
Yes,
the Pioneer Village?
yes.
Okay, so that's the distinction, right? If you pay rent, you can have church services. If you don't pay rent, you can't have church services in a public place. Is that the distinction?
That is the distinction. If you pay the fair market value for the building that you're renting, you can do what you want to do there. If you're paying $1 for the building for a year,
That's
that's
not
not
the
fair
same.
market value, so we can't allow them to do whatever they want.
Do you have a copy of that lease that you had with the Antioquia Church? church by any chance?
The Antique Church was on a month-to-month basis. It was a temporary rental, so.
Do you
we
have
didn't-
something in writing with them?
I make copies of the original agreement, yeah.
Can you pass that along?
Sure.
Get a chance? Nothing urgent.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Just please send it to all of council.
Yes, I will.
Mike, just quick question on the food giveaways that she stated on Wednesday. My question is again, are they reporting? Is she keeping track of who is coming for the food giveaways? Or are they having to identify themselves, like bringing a bill, say it's PG&E's bill, or they're just letting anybody come? That's what I'm trying to get to.
I will follow through on that. I'm not sure what their regulations would be, is how they require their food.
Okay.
I
But
will
is that
do-
part of the report that
The
is
report,
supposed to
our
be
report would
submitted?
be, I think, the number of people and the programs they're doing, but I can dig into it and see if there's requirements on their food giveaway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, I would say if there's, is council done with the questions for Mr. Kirchner? For now?
I have one more, but I'll do it after
Okay.
after public input.
Would anybody from the public like to comment on this matter?
Yes, I'm Diane Carbray. I'm the president of the Boys and Girls Club. I wasn't really going to comment as much to say we've enjoyed being able to serve the Boys and Girls Club at the Salazar Center for the last 3 years. I believe Mark has done a great job just increasing the membership. We finally had a young woman compete for our Youth of the Year this year, so that was a major step. Since when he first opened, it was mostly little kids. So now the teens are showing up, and I'm hoping that we're making a difference in that part of town as far as crime, and I know there was a couple of incidents that happened, but we teach the gang prevention, we teach the drug prevention, alcohol prevention, so I think it's located right where it needs to be, in that neighborhood. So I appreciate your support for the last 3 years, and hope this gets approved.
Yep.
Do you have any questions for me?
No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. More
We have
public
one more
input.
member of the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bob Allen, 1315 Maple. I think this is one of those partnerships I think you can put a gold star up for. Being able to take a facility that no longer is needed for governmental use and to allow a community partnership between Smart Center and the Boys and Girls Club of Selma, I think is a great accolade to all of you. So I just want to say, as a community member, I think this is a great partnership, so approve it.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
With that, I'll bring it back to council.
I have a issue on the insurance. So I'm an insurance guy in my day job. And, there are some requirements here, and I was looking at the insurance requirements. And
Should have known, Scott.
you should have known I'd bring up the
Should've
insurance
known.
requirements. Now everybody's really going to go to sleep on us. Say, wake up, wake up. So I'm looking at the insurance requirements. I've noticed a lot of industry standards with nonprofits now are to require abuse and molestation coverage. Would it be beneficial for the city to go back to RMA, the folks who provide the insurance for the city, and ask them if it might be advisable to require nonprofits to have abuse and molestation? Because I'm seeing it with a lot of the nonprofits that I have as clients, from this, San Francisco Unified School District to, individual schools, individual private schools. It's a horrible thing, but it's also a reality, and it's a sign of the times. And it is commercially available from more and more carriers now, because more and more entities, such as cities and agencies, are requiring that type of coverage. And it might help protect the city in the event that something, some allegation, or it might help protect that entity from going out of business if they didn't have coverage for, one of these types of claims, which could theoretically fall back on the city.
I certainly will ask the question. This was forwarded to our Risk Management Authority, and it was given the thumbs up. But I certainly, if directed, we can ask to go back to him and include a little section into the insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, normally, it would just be an endorsement. You're requiring an additional endorsement.
Yeah, not full limits,
Yeah.
not 2 and 4,
Yeah.
but, you know, an endorsement or a sub-limit or something like that. That's what I've seen.
Just so you understood, it was provided to them, so they did visualize and read through it.
Mhm.
And just to be clear, is this a requirement that you want us, or do you want us to look into it, and if it's,
Well, I'm a professional in the field, and I can tell you, unless you don't believe me, that
no, that's not what I'm
there are lots of
suggesting.
agencies that are moving forward on this and requiring it, so it might be worth,
Well, it's a
as a
safeguard.
city,
It's a
asking the
safeguard.
question
Creating
from a
a
liability
safeguard.
perspective, too.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you did, if for some reason there wasn't, we'll inquire about it and give you an update.
If we authorize it, is that, checking that requirement, is that going to hold up that authorization of going into this contract?
That's what I'm asking. Do you want us to hold up the authorization until we have an answer on that requirement?
I would say no. This is something for the future that's just kind of coming into the industry, but it would be something,
We should.
because these aren't the only 2 nonprofits that the city has contracts with, correct? So, is that right? So we might want to have a policy or take a look, ask the RMA about that.
Oh, a future,
Okay.
In the
a
future.
future policy and structure.
And they
Understood.
may even come back and recommend that type of coverage for other entities in the future. You never know.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say hold anything up.
Okay.
All right.
So, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Franco?
Aye. Public hearing. Item 4, a public hearing, second reading, adoption of an ordinance amending Section 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 1 of the Selma Municipal Code related to the selection of the mayor pro tem.
Mayor, members of the council, this is just an amendment to your selection of the mayor, or the ordinance, rather, that deals with the selection of the mayor and selection of the mayor pro tem. We have necessarily deleted the provisions relating to selection of the mayor because the mayor, as of 2020, will be elected. So the council was advised of what its options were relative to the selection of the remaining officer, the mayor pro tem. And the majority of the council indicated that their preference was for the selection of the mayor pro tem based on a majority vote of the city council. So that's what this ordinance provides for, and essentially either on the first December meeting of the even-numbered years, or on the date the election results are certified. If it comes later than that, the council would nominate and vote on the selection of a mayor pro tem, and that person would hold office for 2 years. And in the event the person does not remain a council person for those 2 years, there's a provision in there that allows you to select a replacement from amongst yourselves of a person that would serve out the remainder of that person's term.
If there's a tie, because you'd have 4 members then, one person is out, what do we do in the event of a tie? It's 2-2.
That position would go unfilled, because if you got a tie vote, that
It
would be a
cancels.
non-action.
Okay.
So the position would go unfilled, and if you don't have a mayor pro tem, the whole reason for a mayor pro tem is to act in the place of the mayor in the event the mayor is not here. And if you don't have a mayor pro tem, you yet have a quorum, the council members simply select among themselves who, as between them, is going to preside over that meeting, and that's the way that would go.
Thank you.
Presumably, you'd select a person to fill the vacancy. And, you know, if you had that 2-2 vote on the mayor pro tem, that filling of the vacancy would likely break that tie.
Okay. All right. I'm going to open this up. Do you want any comments, or you want to hear the public first? Jim, no? Okay, public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this matter? Please step up. In favor or against?
My name's Don Self. I'm at 2875 Logan Street. My question is, what happened to the 5 districts? I'll give a little history of what I can kind of remember of how this all began. I might be wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong. But the state said that we had to have districts. So we went for the 5 districts. The people of the city of Selma all put in maps. That wall was full of maps. And I was really excited about it. I thought, wow, 5 districts, each district will have one representative, not everybody from one district. And I was excited over that. Then somebody came up with 4 districts and Mayor Pro Tem. I don't have enough time to say why I don't like that idea. I did like the 5 districts. Then we had an outsider, I believe the lad came from Kingsburg, who let everybody know their rights, like put it on the ballot. Then one person got up and asked each and every one of you people if we could have it on the ballot. Some of you reluctantly said yes, others said yes. I got my ballot today. I looked through the ballot. Granted, there's a lot on the ballot. I could have missed it, but I didn't see 5 districts. What happened to 5 districts? That's my question.
Mayor?
I'll speak, and you can correct me if I speak wrong. The, putting on the ballot of 5 district was a discussion that was tabled to a later date that the council decided they want to have, to see if they want to do it in the November election. Moving forward, that the majority council decided that they wanted to do 4 districts and 1 mayor at large for this election cycle. And then at the November election cycle, should we decide to between now and then, we would put it on the ballot to see if the community would like to have us do 5 districts or remain with the 4 districts and the mayor at large. And our attorney will clear up any things I said in a more legal terms.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So you've covered it.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, with that, I'm going to bring it back to council. Any comments from council?
No.
I would just recommend, Don, that you take a look at some meetings in the past meetings to follow the path. We do record them. They're streamed, so if you've got access to a computer, you can check out the meetings in the past and you can follow the trajectory of the discussions, how we arrived at the 4 districts and the mayor at large.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. So is this an action item, or do we need to do one more reading, Neil?
No, this is
The second reading?
the second reading,
Second
and it's up for adoption after you've had the public
So,
hearing.
and the ordinance says we're going to, we still haven't decided whether we're going to, Mayor Pro Tem is going to be taking the position at the certification of the election or the first meeting in December?
It has whichever is later, the way the ordinance is written. You don't want to do it on the first meeting of December if the election
Right.
results have not been certified,
Right.
because you don't have the
Right,
real council up there yet.
correct.
So it works one way or the other. If the election results are in by your first meeting of December, that's when you would do it.
Mhm.
If they're not, you wait for those certification results and do it then.
Okay. So,
Okay, let's.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending section 171 relating to the selection of mayor pro tem.
I'll second it.
okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Franco?
No, not that I really have a problem with the ordinance, I just am still in favor of the rotation, but, so I'll be a no on that. Okay. That, item 5, public hearing, second reading, and adoption of an ordinance repealing and reenacting sections 1 through 9, chapter 4 of the title 8 of Selma Municipal Code, abandoned shopping carts ordinance, to define steps for shopping carts containment systems, retrieval and abatement, and consideration of a resolution establishing user fees for the program.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The item we have in front of you, this is the second reading. We brought it to you last meeting, discussion of a shopping carts ordinance that will allow city staff and the business entities at large to be able to structure how the shopping carts will be secured and be able to create or develop plans for the city staff to be able to assess the situation we're currently having. There has been some slight changes as of the additions that were requested from our last meetings, but other than that, it's same as ordinance as last time. You do have within your packet the user fees, which will be charged for this ordinance. There is a couple, and we're actually replacing one as well. So you have CD 57, which is shopping cart abandonment prevention plan. This is the plan in which business owners will come in and be assessed on how they secure their property. And then you have the PW018, which is a shopping cart retrieval. That happens when an individual or business owner does not pick up their carts after 3 days from Public Works notifying them. Is there any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, one question, Isaac. Okay, when people take the shopping carts off the premises of the shopping center, how are we going to enforce that? I mean, it's not the...
So within the
owner-
ordinance itself, what we've done is require that business owners that have shopping carts clearly identify in permanent markings of some type that is their property. So being able to do that, we can see an individual that's driving down the street or with their private property inside of it, but we know that it's not their property at that time, so we can detain it from that.
So what do we do with the individuals that they're actually confiscating those carts?
So there is trying some actions that we can take. Maybe, I think there's a misdemeanor that's actually built into the ordinance itself.
I think we should put a little more teeth into these individuals, because, it's like, you're taking someone's, how would I say, property off their property, it's like stealing. Technically, it's stealing. I'll cut to the chase, okay? It's just stealing right off the bat. I mean, these people, these investors invest a lot of money in our community, provide services for the customers. They are providing service in their stores, and for individuals to take 20, I mean, the reason why I can tell you this, when I worked for the company, Saymark, man, we always been replacing shopping carts left and right.
Yeah.
And those things cost, what I mean? And when you have those costs going up, they pass it on to the consumer. And that's the last thing I want to do, is for the owner of the shopping cart to pass the losses to the consumer. We want to keep the consumer happy, and we can keep him happy, keep his costs happy, the consumer's happy. But the idea is, but also protect his property, It'd be like someone, you park your car on the, off the street, and somebody buys and steals it. Hey, man, that's my car. But I just want to put more teeth in these shopping cart issues here. I want to put maybe a fine, people that take shopping carts. Hey, man, what are you doing with the shopping cart? You know what I mean? Like you say, we identify them already. We know it comes from a certain area. Let's find it. Let's find these people. Let's notify these people. Hey, you can no longer do this. That's all I got to say.
The council asked to add some teeth to this ordinance, and the teeth that we have added has to do with the circumstances under which you can confiscate one of these carts,
Don't tell me.
either out on the street or in the possession of some person who it doesn't belong to. Okay? So you've established a law that says, number one, you've got to mark your cart permanently so we can tell who the owner is. And we've adopted a law that says you've got to have a containment policy. It's supposed to remain on your business premises, You're required to come in here and show us your plan. So you're entitled to make the assumption that people are going to comply with that law. So I've added to Section 844, which is on page 126 of your agenda packet. There's essentially three situations where you see a cart that's away from the business premises. Either it's in the possession of somebody, and it's got the mark on it. It's in the possessions of somebody, and the mark's been taken off of it. Or it's just out there, abandoned. So in each of those situations, we built in a presumption that the cart, if it's in your possession, for example, you're walking down the street and it's away from the business premises, there is a rebuttable presumption that you are in possession of stolen property. Okay? So you've got to in order to seize or take the cart away from this person, you got to conform to the Fourth Amendment. So you've got your probable cause because you've got the presumption that everybody's complying with the law, and therefore this guy out here with the cart is in possession of stolen property, because if everybody's complying with the law, that cart wouldn't be there. So I'm presuming it's stolen property. That is my probable cause to confiscate it. I also need exigent circumstances. You always have exigent circumstances when the thing that you're dealing with is mobile, because there's a danger it's going to move away before you can confiscate it. So in those circumstances, or if it's just sitting on the sidewalk, or perhaps has been pushed into this person's front lawn on McCall Avenue, but that front lawn is accessible from the sidewalk, you see that cart out there, under this ordinance, you're entitled to presume that that thing is abandoned, and that it's abandoned stolen property. You see somebody out there with a cart that's got the markings off of it, same presumption applies. You're in possession of stolen property. It's mobile. All three of those circumstances, I can take that cart away from you, or take it off the street, or off this person's front lawn, and confiscate it and hold it for the 3 days for the owner to come and pick it up. And at the expiration of those 3 days, and if we don't find an owner, we send it, I suppose, to a recycle place, right?
We dispose of it. That's correct.
Ironic. So what about if the enforcement, would it be code enforcement that pulls the people over without the carts, or with the carts, or sees the carts and picks them up and transports, or what's the procedure? Would code enforcement have, or PD ask Public Works to transport
That's correct.
the actual
It'd
carts?
actually be PD that actually would approach the individuals.
Is
and
there
then
an
contact Public
ironclad
Works.
set of procedures for that, just so people know the flow? They know the flow, so that, one part of the city doesn't say, well, that's someone else's responsibility to seize the cart. Is that going to be communicated to the different departments?
That already has.
By
When
the
we actually
department
developed
directors?
this, all city staff, as department head wise, has discussed the matter and how we can actually approach this and make it feasible to do so. So Public Works has discussed it, PD has discussed it, code enforcement, the POP officer. So they're all within the conversation when we
So walk me
develop this
through that. Give me an
ordinance.
example. I see, say PD drives by on Whitson past McDonald's and sees a cart there, and, doesn't see the identifying markings on it, or does see the identifying markings, and it looks like it's a food for less cart, and someone's pushing that cart. What happens?
That'd be the PD officer that actually would approach the individual to try to abate that nuisance.
Okay, and then,
And then they would relieve the individual of the cart, and then they can contact Public Works at that time to either pick it up, or we can have the code enforcement officer contact the business owner to pick it up themselves, depending on the situation.
Would
obviously.
there be an actual citation written, or would the penalty here be just the confiscation?
Well, you could actually do both.
Okay.
And yeah, I think, Lieutenant Reed, I think it would be a citation that we'd be looking at, and it has to be clearly marked so we would know that it was stolen property. If it's not clearly marked,
That's
PD
correct.
cannot.
And legally, do you have to follow a certain pattern every time so that the city doesn't become a target of a lawsuit? I mean, do you have to give the citation every time or never give the citation? Or can it be up to the judgment of the officer?
It would be at the judgment of the officer, depending on the circumstances. Of
Like
how they
repetition
obtained
if they
or
see it over and
why
over?
they're in possession of it, yes.
Yeah, and what you're not going to want to do is you're not going to want to get into an altercation with this person over the possession of the cart. If, he's hanging on it for dear life, you let him go.
And we have personal property
It's a matter
issues.
of, there's a great deal of discretion vested in your law enforcement officers. who
And would that
deal with
come
this
down to
sort of thing.
training? Would there be additional training for that? Like, how to tactfully and respectfully relocate the property, the personal property that's within the cart?
Some of
to
that
a safe
training's
place?
already been provided through academy training and that, so on how to deal with these situations.
So everybody's ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, with that, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it up to the public. If anyone would like to speak on this matter, please do so now. Being none, now I'm going to close the public hearing portion and bring it back to council.
Is there any further questions?
No,
Do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to, on this item, the second hearing on the adoption on the shopping carts.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Mayor Franco?
Aye. All right, departmental reports, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In addition to some of the things we talked about earlier today, I'd like to share with you that along with our problem-oriented policing officer, our fire marshal, code enforcement, and public works staff met last week to start talking about the cleanup of the encampments at Rockwell Pond. So that
And-
process is going to be more intensive than some of the other encampments, but we are getting together to start that process.
Do you have an estimated timeline?
We do need to, I think one of the key factors there is to find a way to secure any personal property. So that process might take us, to bring this whole thing together, 4 to 6 weeks.
Can I ask, what is the demarcation between the city and the county at Rockwell Pond? Do we know where one ends and where one begins?
Yes, we do know which property is ours
Okay.
and which is county.
Okay, and this will be a joint venture with the county, is that correct?
We certainly can talk about that partnership as well, but we are looking at our property principally. It was our first discussion.
This will
And
be city limits property.
And we are looking at, though, partners with the county as far as social services, mental health, MAP. So we're looking at a variety of different services that we would need to have present in addition to, law enforcement and public works.
Will anyone need to be wearing hazmat suits? Do we know if the problem has progressed to that degree out there to keep everybody safe?
We're looking into that and getting some quotes on the types of cleanup we'll need.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
City attorney?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Finance department, assistant city manager, Moreno?
Thank you. Mayor, council members, tonight I'd like to go ahead and give you my mid-year budget update. We'll go through the process. Before I do, there was a council request at the last meeting. I'd like to give you that information at this point in time as well. There was a request for how much we actually paid out to Catch Environmental for the P Station project. As of this point in time, we have paid out $3.9 million to the project itself, to Catch. We also have a copy of a memorandum from Vernier that has been approved. Catch currently is about 12 days behind on the project schedule, which is in tolerance level for the size of this project. Is there any questions regarding that item before we move forward? Okay. So again, this is my mid-year budget update. We'll go through multiple items now. As you know, from my first quarter update, we go through the general fund, budget to actual, key factors of revenues and expenditures. We'll also go into Measure S. In addition to that, we'll go into the enterprise funds. Okay. So the total budget for the 1920 fiscal year is 16 million. So at the midway point, we project to be around 50% of that overall budget, which would bring us close to about $8 million. And again, just my disclaimer that I normally give, some of the revenues and expenditures are estimated. So for example, franchise fees are not totally populated yet because we haven't been paid them. So we use an increment of which we budgeted to use as our benchmark for those numbers. Moving forward. So for the general fund, again, the budget would be about 8.0 million. We're currently actual of 7.6 with a variance of 414,000. That is about 47% of our total revenues that we've currently received. That is still a pretty good solid number. As you know, this is a good indicator of where we're falling when we come to the mid-year because you've now received a full half year of sales tax, and you've also get your property tax increment that comes in December. So you can see that those numbers are actually hitting where they're supposed to be for their benchmarks. Okay. Some of the key factors that I'd like to point out: engineering for their revenue streams at 64%. Again, the department 0000 is at 47%. That is a good number for that department, considering it makes up a majority of our revenue stream. And then building department is at 66%. So for our expenditures, again, 8.0 million. Our actual is 7.2 with a variance of $785,000. So you can see that we're well under budget, which brings us about a 45%. So just going back to the first slide, you see our revenues are about 47, or our expenditures at 45. It's just some of the key markers here. The general non-department, 61%, and human resources at 58%. Again, those departments should be around 50%, but the general non-department does have a bond expense in there, so it is escalated slightly higher because you're going to pay more of it within different periods of the time. So that brings us to a positive gain for the general fund, about $370,000. Is there any? And again, I'll provide these slides to you tomorrow, and I'll email them out to the whole council.
Read my mind.
Before I do move on, did you want to see the pay register for Catch as well in that email?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Isaac.
Thank you.
Well, so that'll move us on to Measure S. We're the budget of 912,000. Actual to date for revenues is actually 982, with a variance of 70,000. For our budget expenditures, we should be about 881,000, with an actual of 900,000, with a variance about 19,000, which brings us to a positive net gain of about $82,000. The one thing I will point out, if you remember from our last presentation, we actually had a negative number in there. So you can see our sales tax within our Measure S is actually slightly increased. Okay. That'll take us into our enterprise funds. So the first fund that we'll look at is going to be the ambulance fund, with a total budget of $2 million and an actual of 2.2, with a variance of 163,000. Just again, IGT actually has not come in yet. It is estimated, although we did receive our instructions to make our wire transfer today. So that'll be going down the process. Our budget expenditures, 1.9. Our actual, that budget number actually does include the new budget increase that we did for the fire services. So that is our new number. So our actual that we received or expended is about 1.7, with a variance of 199,000. Oh, sorry. That brings us to a net gain of 542,000 for the ambulance fund. Our next item is the Pioneer Village. Our budget, it's a very small fund. You don't have a large budget overall. So a budget is 22,000. Our actual for revenue streams is 30,000, which I give my good credit. I mean, they really, I started picking up a lot of more rentals. So you can see that reflected in his revenues for the budget for the year. So that raises a variance of 7,900 and an increased revenue stream. Our budget expenditures, 44,000. Actual about 40,000 with a variance of 4,100. That does bring us to a net loss of $10,000. You're going to see some larger swings in this department when it comes to the negative losses. It's just because of the way they operate and some of the bigger expenditures they may do at the beginning of the year, some improvements and things of that nature, so you'll see that taper down. They are going through their fund balance, though. They are trying to pick that up and increase those numbers, but this number in their fund balance, their net balance has been increasing over the years. So you will see net losses going through the year. Transit service is our contract with the Fresno County Rural Transit Authority. Our current budget for the mid-year would be $543,000. Our actual revenue stream projected is about $578,000. There are some estimated billings in there, but I took the actual mean of what we actually built so far to create a number to be able to plug into there. So that's a variance of $25,000. Budget expenditures, $476,000, actual $452,000, with a variance of $22,000, leaving a net gain of about $126,000. Okay. And just so you are aware, we're in the second fiscal year of that contract. So that brings us to our last department in the enterprise funds, the cultural arts. Their budget is $66,000. Their current actual is $108,000 with a variance of $41,000. So that is an increase in their overall revenue streams. Their budget for expenditures is $78,000. Actual is $108,000. So you do see a net loss of $9,100. Again, this is just mainly an income statement standpoint. It's not your balance sheet. It's just giving you the net that they've done for this fiscal year so far.
Is that just the variance with the budgeted amount, the actual loss or gain?
It's kind of difficult to judge this fund because of the way their program money comes in. You can have heavier expenditures come in. This was actually worse when we first looked at it for the first quarter. I want to say it was like $32,000 negative at that point in time. So it's really a swing in how those revenue streams come in. Mike did say that we are missing some current payments from Vendini, so that is affecting the bottom line as well. So it's just the flow of how this department functions.
So it's not just revenue, it's not just budgeted amount, it's all the above, is that right?
Pretty much,
The
because
timing
you
of
have
when
all the
people pay.
expenditures at the beginning, all the revenues on the back end, unless you're getting donations, obviously.
Some of it has to do with revenue, like Isaac said, that some revenue ticket sales hasn't come in. Also, we pay in advance up to 8 months to a year ahead of time for plays, and you have a $6,000 to $7,000 investment for a play that you won't get revenue for 8 months till the play starts because you have to pay for the rights so early. So
What grants, do you book the grants in that? Do grants come in there? Do you book that as revenue?
Well, when we do donations, per se, it's not grants. They'll go directly to the play. Usually, they're allocated directly to a certain play. It depends on where that fund's coming from and how they want it to be identified.
So the budget is just kind of the budget for each play in payroll?
Correct. So when we do a budget for this fund, we do a one line item for revenue streams for the plays itself because there's going to be different when we break it all the way out. So yeah, you'll see it on one character line item.
Isaac, I have a question. Do we do any rentals for the art center?
We do, and it is allocated to this fund.
Okay, so we can rent it out, collect a fee, just so that, I'm just looking to see what we could do to be a little more profitable for the art center, because we've seen this time again, and I always say I want to see profit, not net loss, so.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we can get there. This is really so much better, I have to say, because it was about 32,000 in the red last time. So, maybe we could look at that and see what we could do to help get that to be a profit, not a loss.
I know the Arts Council is always meeting when they have it's a monthly meeting, right? They're trying to figure out how they can generate new funding sources for this program itself. And they're starting to think outside of the box and create new programs and drawing people back into that art center to be able to do those things. Okay. And you're seeing a wide range of people actually renting that facility itself. Anything from the opening of the Blossom Trail to special events. So you are seeing it getting rented.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that concludes my presentation. Is there any other questions?
Very good.
All right.
Isaac.
Thank you.
Hey, fire department?
We did get our ambulance showed up over the weekend, so we were able to take delivery of that. And we are continuing on with the recruitment process with interviews tomorrow and the next day to fill the positions to staff it. So we're still right on track to get started the 1st of March.
Is it just competitive out there? Is that why you're not able to find somebody?
No, we have, well, the paramedics, it's a little
The
bit competitive,
paramedics.
but we did get, I
earlier.
think, 3 applicants for the 2 full-time positions. So we're okay there. We had plenty of EMTs. There are lots of EMTs looking for work out there. So we did do that. I already touched a little bit on the tower move. I would just reassure council that our whole group that's working on it, we respect the urgency of getting it moved so that the transit authority can get in there and get their project started and stuff. We've worked through some complexities with it. I'm at least excited that we did find somebody that would move it. That was a concern. When I first reached out to the company that built it, they were a little taken aback that we were going to move it. They said it was never designed to be moved. So it's basically 12 C-train containers, when you think about it, that are stacked and intertwined together to form a 3-story tower. So I was a little worried about that, but we did find somebody that believes they can move it and do so, and get it to a position where we can continue to use it. So we're on it, and we'll get it done.
How's the budget on that? I think FCRTA was 100,000, providing the city with 100,000. Is the city gonna be able to move it for 100,000?
Probably not.
Probably
Not the way things are looking. I didn't want to.
Will some of that gain come from that transit, the 126,000, the net gain at 6 months?
I believe we've looked into some funding sources that will.
I've started to identify funding sources to fill that gap. At this point, it's really just trying to assess the whole budget, so we know what that real number is.
Are there grants out there? Maybe we get Townsend involved in this. Maybe there's some grants to move fire stations around, public safety grants. Just something, think creative, just see if we, because it's a one-time expense, right? You're not going to move it back in 6
Right.
months. It's
No.
one time and you're
One
done.
time. We're
So, maybe there might be a grant out there too. Might be
We
worth
can take a
talking
look.
to Townsend about it.
So,
That it? Yeah. Fire department, Sergeant Reed, anything to report?
Just to let the council know that on Friday, January 31st, we joined in a search warrant service, which was conducted by the Kingsburg Police Department regarding burglaries that they were investigating. Agencies including the Fresno Sheriff's Department SWAT team, Fresno County Adult Compliance Team, the Fresno County Magic, Tulare County Sheriff's Department, and Second Chance Animal Shelter were also involved. Teams were deployed in many different locations throughout the South Fresno County and Tulare County areas, along with 2 addresses here in Selma. Within the Selma area, 1 person was taken into custody in the 3100 block of Mulberry Street in relation to Kingsburg's charges. 2 others outside of Selma, and 1 remains at large at this time. Kingsburg requested the use of the Selma jail to house some of those taken into custody until their interrogations could be conducted. There was just 1 call from the community that we received in concern about the proximity of one of the houses to one of the schools. We did complete what we call a threat assessment, which was conducted, and that was not a factor in the threat assessment due to the containment of the area that we had, and also the tactical approach that we were going to make at that time. So that did not enter into the threat matrix that we were looking at. So other than that, I have nothing further.
Thank you. Recreation Department?
Yeah, if just let you know, the Ringo playground equipment is on schedule. It's actually up and ready. Now the Public Works will begin doing some groundwork on the flooring. We'll add a weed abatement mat to keep the weeds from going out. We'll add the fiber that comes in next Monday, and then we'll add lights, the park benches, and the 2 benches have already arrived, so insulation, and it'll be open to the public. Pickleball crack sealing will begin on Wednesday. There's some cracking being done, so we're going to get that covered. And then just thank to Lieutenant Reed, but tonight from 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. and tomorrow night from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. the senior center will be open for a warming center.
All right, thank you. Council report, Councilmember Avalos.
Okay, I don't have too much tonight, a little bit. I attended I was invited to the Boys and Girls contest. For that contest is, they pick individuals from different Boys and Girls Club, that individuals come from a tragic family, believe it or not, contest. And to attend that and hear the tragic of those people that live in those communities, and actually we had one individual, one of the girls that was in the contest came from Selma, and to hear her story of how her upbringing and the tragedy of her life is it brings tears to your eyes, and to hear 7 individuals talk about their livelihood from abuse to being abandoned, totally abandoned. It was breathtaking. I was like stunned a little bit, and it makes you realize, being up here in city government, that we have to believe in and support the opportunities of organizations that try to help youth to get off the streets. I don't care if it's a DARE program or Boys and Girls Club program. As long as there are programs to help the future of these youth keep from being abused and mistreated in our communities. I didn't realize that the numbers are growing, unfortunately, and they're the future of our society. So we got to take some kind of ownership in our own backyard to assure that. And I think it involves everybody in our community, from churches all the way down to ourselves, to keep an eye on our youth and develop programs for them to be better citizens in our community and give them the opportunities they never had before to be successful. And I always believe in that very strongly. So, and the other issue too, since I've got you guys here, I want to put some on the agenda next time on the bike licensing. Bike license. And the reason why I'm saying that, I think we have it on the books, Neil, I'm not sure. Don't quote me here. I think we got it. I'm not sure. But I want to, the reason why I'm bringing that up is I want to kind of generate some little bit of revenue on the bike license. I'm not saying charge $200 or something like that, but a small amount so we could put a little sticker on the bike to when these kids steal bikes or whatever, we can identify the bikes, but also at the same time we can identify certain individuals on those bikes, and I'm not saying we can do the blueprint program that the police are using very effectively to identify individuals that we can. It gives the law enforcement a little more teeth to pull certain individuals over and check to see, hey man, is that your bike, or where'd you get that bike? Where's your license? You know what I mean? A little more enforcement out there. At the same time, that little people are going to be okay because they'll have little tags, and it'll also protect our bikes still being stolen as well. So that's all I got to say tonight.
All right, thank you, Councilman Robertson.
So I don't know if anyone's been smelling the cough syrup smell outside. I know I have for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Going outside at night, in the morning, going, what is that? So I called Ryan Jacobson at the Farm Bureau, and he said, not to worry, it is a pre-emergent application for weed control. So it's just part of what the ag folks put on their vineyards and their orchards at this point. I had the honor of being a judge at the contest that Councilman Avalos was talking about. Maria Gutierrez was our Selma participant. Incredible stories, 8 stories. I highly recommend going to Youth of the Year if you ever get a chance. You hear just stories of incredible people overcoming such hardships and not having families, and that family being really the Boys and Girls Club, being finding that family support that they don't have at home. They find it at the Boys and Girls Club. Congratulations, speaking of which, to the Boys and Girls Club for the 6-acre donation from the Gap. And also, it'll be next to the $20 million Fresno City Animal Shelter that's going to be going up. This year's Corazones por Selma event, which we've had for the last 3 years, will be held at Selma Mobile Estates on February 6th. We'll be providing lunch to residents. If you'd like to help serve, please let me or Rose know. Shakespeare said it. There's a divinity shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. I think we talked tonight a lot about religion. I think it came into some of our discussions, and we got to remember that the First Amendment does have an establishment clause that says we have to be careful of supporting or establishing a religion at the city level. At the same time, I support religion 100% at the personal level. And it brings me to the last thing we have. We've been hearing a lot about unity, and just to ruminate on that for a second. There are times when we're not going to agree on the city council dais, and I think that it can be a real problem if we just agree for agreement's sake. I mean, I think we have genuine disagreements. The police station was one. We went over budget, $3 million over the $8 million the people told us to stay within, and I disagreed with that, and I voted no. We had several that voted for it. We had genuine disagreement. I think it's important to have that discussion and vote, not just because you have some affiliation to some outside entity, but for your city and for your gut. And where do you listen to your gut and to your spirit and your soul? Sometimes it's going to your church, and it's praying about these things. So it's really important it all comes together. I'm hopeful that the school district will move forward with their issues that they're having right now. We hope for the best. I remember the superintendent said one time to me, when someone moves to a city, and she was a real estate agent before she was superintendent, she said the first thing they ask is, how's the crime? Second thing they ask is, how are the schools? So you're darn right, the schools in the city are connected. And I, again, issue the request for a joint meeting of the city council and the school board so that we can talk about our various issues that we have in front of the people who we represent and who elect us to do their business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay. I too attended the Boys and Girls Club Recognition Award, and it was it was a beautiful ceremony and very heartwarming. I have to say, just like Councilmember Avalos and Councilmember Robertson, if you can ever go to one of these awards and see for yourself and hear the stories, I think it'll make you really appreciate life so much more and how you treat others as well. So with that, I do strongly believe, like Councilmember Robertson stated, we're gonna disagree. We may not always agree, but we're gonna treat each other with respect, and that's what we need to do. We're gonna come together, and we do respect each other, and we respect each other's decisions. So I'd like to just take that with me as well. Other thing, I did attend the Verizon ribbon cutting, which was really nice, and if you haven't gone to see it, it's a beautiful building. They are offering so many specials, so that's a really nice facility to go look at. So that was it for me.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I also attended the Verizon ribbon cutting, and as well as Councilman Robertson was there as well. It was a great event. Great job from the chamber for organizing that. Also attended the monthly Fresno Council of Government meeting, and they currently have another round, Teresa. I know I mentioned this before, of the TOD grant. I know we got a grant last year, but I'm sure we can find something there's money there for the city, and they're having a workshop February 12th, 10 a.m., so probably reach out to Townsend to attend that, or we can send somebody on their behalf to get information for that. I also had the pleasure of having breakfast with Congressman T.J. Cox on Saturday, and he said now that basically that the impeachment stuff is pretty much done, that both parties seem to finally be willing to work on an infrastructure grant. So hopefully there'll be opportunities for us to work with them in allocating some infrastructure money in this next budget cycle on the federal side. And that's basically that I all have for now. So with that, we will go to oral communications. Notice to the public, at this time, any member of the public may address the city council regarding any items over which the council has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will be taken on any item not on the agenda. Issue raised will be referred to the city manager for review. Members of the public shall limit the remarks to 3 minutes.
1057 Mill Street, Rose Robertson. I just want to praise you all who support the Boys and Girls Club. I know that's very special to Councilmember Guerra and myself, living on Park Street, just down the street from that Boys and Girls Club. And we see grandparents who are our age, who have their grandparents, who have their grandkids attending. Avalos has his grandkids there as well. But it's a lot of the people we grew up there who have an opportunity to have their kids there. By having their kids there, it's a safe zone for these kids to feel safe. And it really does help the schools, for these kids to want to do better in the schools and know that they do better at the Boys and Girls Club. They will make it to school and want to do better there. So it's a great organization. And I know that there's a couple of committee people here on the Boys and Girls Club for the Selma. And we will be working on some lunches to sell. The Boys and Girls are getting a little bit better on working on fundraising for themselves as well. So again, I appreciate all the support. There is tons of support attending the event in Fresno. There's a lot of law enforcement in that board for the Central Valley Boys and Girls Club for decades and decades, and I can see why the law enforcement and a whole lot of other people that are on those boards for decades. They're supported in Fresno. Selma finally bought the Boys and Girls Club here the last 3 years. And I hope, if I'm correct, 3 to 4, and I hope it continues for another couple decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, for your comments. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Okay, so moved.